This is the side of my head because in this video we'll be discussing one side of 2000s metalcore.
Welcome to Tune Fever, baby.
Well, folks, here we are at episode 8 in our metal series, and this is part 2 of our metalcore saga within the metal series. And this particular part is on the 2000s polished era of metalcore. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So in the 2000s, there was kind of a schism off of 90s metalcore, and it kind of, hold on. Looks like we have a question from the audience. I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? Oh, I see. Well, that's the right time period, but yeah, I'm not putting you in this list. So no, you're not the schism that I'm referring to. You will go in a different list. You're not here. So 90s metalcore split into the 2000s polished metalcore and 2000s raw metalcore, which is they just sound different. And that's what this series is all about, is what different kinds of metal sound like and what's the best stuff to check out to learn about it. And I also really like it. So here is the guide to metal polishing 101. So first of all, they have scream and they have clean vocals. And that happens in other subgenres for sure, but it definitely happens here. And sometimes it's more clean vocals than scream. So sometimes that's the case. Okay, also we have guitar solos here. There a lot of this style of music has guitar solos as opposed to breakdowns that take place in a lot of other kinds of metalcore. Now, of course, breakdowns can still happen here, but it's a lot of guitar solos. So it's also very close to like hard rock, in style. It's definitely metal because the riffs are more metal and the drums are more metal than a lot of the hard rock bands. But it can be pretty close. Some of it can be quite commercial / straightforward. So it kind of can appeal to like certain moms, like very particular kinds of moms, the moms. It can appeal to even them. And they can get some pretty decent radio play. And usually they have pretty squeaky clean recordings, which is not completely always true, but lots of times there's some pretty serious attention and some money going into making sure they're recorded really, really excellently. And then also the guys who listen to this are like the workout guys, or sometimes like the army guys that could probably beat you up. Yeah, and if you ask those people what kinds of music they're into, their kinds of music that they're into usually fall into two categories. And so there's like the one half of the music that they like to work out to, which is like the Theory of a Dead Man and the Shinedown. And that's kind of the stuff that we push aside and we all kind of are like, yeah, that's not great. And then there's the other half of their music, which is pretty good. Which that stuff usually falls into this category here, the 2000s polished metalcore. Yeah, let's go ahead and go to this slide. So this is kind of a comparison slide. So that's 90s metalcore, and then after you polish it, you get 2000s polished metalcore. So that's where we're going to go with this video. So as you guys know that I do in this series, I like to recommend two classics, two of my personal favorites that are not necessarily classics, but they could also be, and then two that I think are interesting for some reason, all of which fit into this category of 2000s polished metalcore to help you kind of get this sound in your ear. So the first classic that I want to recommend is Trivium, Ember to Inferno. Now, one thing to note about this is that it's quite grandiose. There's certainly a lot of it sounding very large and grand sounding, but it's absolutely good. I don't know why that's a but yeah, and it's absolutely good. This is a really early Trivium album. I think it might be their first. I tend to like their earlier stuff more than their more recent stuff. But yeah, it's a nice one. Number 2, we have Kill Switch Engage with this album, and this particular one, it's nice. It's nice. It's kind of like a lot of people got into metal with this album. It's kind of their gateway. It wasn't necessarily my gateway into metal, but this certainly could be. Like your mom might like this album. So then some of my but okay, let me be clear. It's really good. I don't want to be too cynical. My first favorite here. All That Remains is The Fall of Ideals. And guys, this album, its musicianship is really good. The players on it are really terrific. Also, kind of in this list, this is maybe the heaviest on the list. Yeah, it's genuinely really heavy, and the playing is really awesome. So next on the list we have Shadows Fall, The War Within. Once again with the incredible musicianship. Some of this guitar playing is just out of this world. But yeah, and some of the songwriting on this is really terrific too. There's a lot of vision that goes into these albums. They're definitely kind of laborious things to put together. These two favorites particularly is what I'm referring to. But yeah, I really like these two. So the first one on interesting is Bullet for My Valentine's album called Scream Aim Fire. Now this is about as pop as you can possibly get and still call it metal, in my opinion, because they make genuinely good pop metal, which, I mean, I'm not sure that's a thing, and it doesn't really sound like pop music, but it's about as close as you can get to being pop within metal. But yeah, this is kind of where it fits. And again, the playing on it is really awesome, but also it's so accessible. But yeah, I really like it. Next up, we have Parkway Drive, an album called Don't Close Your Eyes. Now, to me, this is a really interesting one, and it might be debated that it doesn't even quite fit here. But I would say the style of music that they write, they're going for the more polished side of metalcore, although it is much more about screaming. So it's a bit kind of heavier than a lot of these bands. Because yeah, Parkway Drive, you're not gonna flip on the rock radio station and hear this one. But yeah, I think with their music compositions, what they write, I think it's more in the vein of the 2000s polished stuff. But yeah, this is a really good album, and it's really early for them too. It might be their first. But yeah, so next time you're in the gym working out, be sure to listen to this music, and surely some women will come ask you to spot for them. So yeah, that'll be really, really good. So always be this guy with your music, just jamming out to your 2000s polished metalcore. You got your whey powder. Um, you know that that's gonna do it for you. So be sure to join us in the next episode, or the next episode within the metalcore saga. So I'll see you then.